before we get started. So unless anyone would like to have their application tabled to the future, we'll just proceed tonight and the board members will vote as they see. Yes, sir. You are not tabled. If you don't get 4 affirmative votes, then the motion or your variance just fails. It's not approved.
Thank you. Introduction of staff.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Blair, and I'm one of the planners here with Kent County Planning Services. Also with me to my left is fellow planner Jamie Fensky, and to her left is Mark Kennedy. He's our IT person tonight. And then across the dais, all the way at the end, is Mr. Fred Townsend. He will be the board's legal counsel this evening.
Thank you, Scott. Now, please, everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Any additions or alterations to the agenda?
There are none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Public hearing introduction, please.
Thank you. Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Scott Blair, and I'll preside as the hearing officer for tonight's public hearing. This hearing is being conducted for the purpose of providing the citizens of the county an opportunity to present testimony on these applications before the Kent County Board of Adjustment. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. This will provide those who wish an opportunity to give their testimony. There is an official recording of these proceedings being made. Therefore, we ask that only one person speak at a time and that they speak clearly. Furthermore, there shall be no cross-examination of witnesses permitted during the public hearing, but the board can ask the applicant questions after any opposition if necessary. We do ask that everyone limit their testimony to 5 minutes or less tonight, and please stay focused on the variances or variance presented. If the chairperson of the board, they have the discretion to allow additional time if deemed to be necessary. To make a statement when your application is called, please use the podium at the front of the room. If you are participating online and wish to give testimony, we will unmute your line so you may speak. For the record, please give your name, address, and allow our attorney to swear you in prior to providing any testimony. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification so that they may be entered into the permanent record. The procedure on each variance application will be as follows. The legal notice will be read on each case prior to the receipt of testimony. There will be a brief explanation of the application by staff. The board will then receive testimony from all those in favor of the application, followed by those who may be opposed. Once those persons in favor and those in opposition have had an opportunity to speak, the hearing on that application will be declared closed. Decisions on all applications heard this evening will be made by the board during the business meeting following the public hearing. However, you are not required to remain after the public hearing once your request has been heard and closed. During the business meeting, the board will consider all information of record. A common vote of 4 board members of the board shall be required to make a decision on each application. If you do not wish to wait for the business meeting later this evening, you may call Kent County Planning Department tomorrow between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. at 744-2471 or check the Kent County Planning Department website to learn of the board's ruling. All applicants will receive written notification of the board's decision. However, this notice may not be mailed until after the next scheduled meeting. But if approved, you are welcome to apply for any necessary permits prior to receiving this by mail. Please keep this decision in your records for both you and all future property owners. The public notice of this evening's hearing was published on May 2nd in the Delaware State News. In addition, all of the subject properties were posted with a sign prior to the hearing to further notify the public of the nature of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We're going to go back and do roll call and determine that we have a quorum, please.
Ms. Hudson.
Here.
Mr. Jenkins.
Here.
Mr. Nichols.
Here.
And Mr. Kusick.
Here.
Vote shows we still have 4 members, so we do still have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to have a statement by the council, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you. I'd like to start with a reiteration of what was explained by Mr. Blair just now, and that is that we are down to the minimum 4 members of the board that are required to constitute a quorum so that we can actually even have a meeting. Any motion to approve or deny an application tonight will fail if it doesn't have 4 affirmative votes. So 3 votes in favor and 1 against any of the applications will result in a denial of the application. So if any of you are still considering whether you wish to go forward tonight, sometime before we get to your application, we would ask you to indicate that to us. Typically, what we're here to decide are whether to grant or deny area variances, and I think the first 3 applications we have relate to area variances, and I'm about to explain the rules that are associated with those. The 4th application is for a use variance. It's a different standard, and when we get to that one, I will introduce the differing standard before we begin. Regarding area variances, the test for the granting of such variances is set forth in the Delaware Supreme Court case known as the Board of Adjustment versus Quick Check Realty. The standard applied is whether a strict application of the regulations results in an exceptional practical difficulty of ownership. To determine whether that test is met, the board must consider the following 4 factors. First, the nature of the zone where the property lies. Second, the character and uses of the immediate vicinity. Third, whether removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect neighboring properties. And fourth, lastly, the most important issue perhaps is whether failure to remove the restrictions would create an unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. This factor is satisfied only when difficulties that are alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. And it is here where the board considers whether the applicant is seeking more than is minimally necessary to relieve the asserted difficulty. In general, the board's not permitted to consider factors other than the 4 that I just listed, so those speaking in support of or in opposition to applications are urged to present only information bearing on those 4 factors, which again, restated briefly, are number 1, the zoning district, number 2, the character of the immediate vicinity, number 3, the effect on neighboring properties, and 4, whether the applicant faces exceptional practical difficulties of ownership. In particular, the presenters are instructed to exclude from the presentations any discussion of personal disputes or acrimony between the applicant and neighboring property owners, as the board is unable and unauthorized to resolve those disputes. Presenters must limit their remarks to those issues the board can decide, and presenters are subject to being interrupted and urged to stay on point, and additionally to make their presentations within the allocated time during the course of the meeting. Those are my comments, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. All right, at this time, we'll begin the public hearing. As Scott stated earlier, we're going to try to stick to the 5-minute allotted time for presentation, just as looks like there's quite a few who don't want to be here all night. So we'll greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to call the first one. So for all future ones, initially, Jamie and I will ask if anyone's here to represent the application. If you could just raise your hand and remain seated. Once we do the introduction, then we'll call you up and have you sworn in so you can give testimony. Thank you. So the first application tonight is A22-12. It's Maurice E. Kelball. So Mr. Kelball seeks a variance from the minimum 200 feet of road frontage to enable a lot line adjustment. This property is located on the west side of Pear Tree Lane, approximately 0.47 miles south of Brownsville Road, west of Harrington, Levy Court District 6. It is zoned AR. So you can see in Exhibit B, this is the proposed lot line adjustment, and you can see on the lot that will be created, the applicant is requesting that they have 150 feet of road frontage instead of the 200 feet of required road frontage, as you can see circled there. The next slide shows one of the houses on the property. It's the one, I guess, more towards the north. This is another view of that. This is more towards the other side. It's a manufactured home off to the left. You can kind of see that. This is looking one direction of Pear Tree Lane. You can get the character of the area, kind of see. This is looking in the other direction. Again, it gives you some idea of the character of the area, and it's rural. This is a kind of a low-level area that gives you an idea of the layout, again, and kind of outlines the area in question. And this gives you a farther up aerial photograph. You can kind of get the character of the area. It's very rural, agricultural, some mixed residential use, and a lot of forested land. Okay, at this point, if our applicant can come up and allow our attorney, just give your name and address. Please speak slowly so we can write him down and allow him to swear or affirm you in.
Maurice Kelball. The address is 571 Pear Tree Lane. No, the variance is for 571. 571 Pear Tree Lane in Harrington, Delaware.
And that's not your address?
That's not where I'm living currently.
Do you mind giving us your address, please?
Yeah, it's 29519 Glenwood Drive, Millsboro, Delaware.
Thank you. Sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You can proceed.
Okay. So first off, the nature zone where the property lies, there are quite a few other properties that do not have the 200 feet variance.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you just pull that mic closer to you and speak a little?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's several properties. I don't know if you can flip it up, but there's three right beside it. Those, based off of the county map, one is 122 feet. The next one beside that only has 100 foot of road frontage. And then when you go down the road further, there's another one that's only has 110 foot road frontage. So I'm seeking the variance for the 150. As far as the character and uses immediate to the vicinity, again, by moving that to 150 feet, that gets me closer to what I need, plus it still allows 1.35 acres with that frontage. If you go back to the aerial view of the map, if you can go there right quick. So right now, that property line is right beside the garage, and it cuts through the existing drain field where you can see all the white caps. So I'm not sure how that property line was even allowed to begin with, but I'm trying to get that 150 feet looking from the bottom of the screen up, which puts you kind of where that tree is, and the back to 160 feet. That'd get the drain field on the correct property line to where I plan on building a house where you can see, which will be right in front of the garage, which is kind of in the middle there by the pool. So that's kind of why I'm doing this, because right now the house that's on the top side of the page, the drain field for the septic is actually on the other property line. So I need to move that property line over for that 150 feet. I've got some letters here from neighbors. They are not opposed to what we're trying to do. So I don't know if anybody wants to read them in the meantime or during your break or whatever. That's fine. Let's see what else. Oh, sorry. So as far as opposing affecting the neighbors' properties, well, I've contacted all the neighbors. They're fine with it. And by looking at some of the aerial maps, it's really not going to affect anything. Plus, I own both of those properties, so I'm just adjusting one line to the next. So it's really only affecting the two properties that I own, but makes it more sense to not have a septic field on a property that's not with a house. So that's one of the main reasons as well. As far as a hardship, I don't really know how to quantify that, other than you really can't have a drain field that's not associated to the house that's on another property. Plus, when I build the house, that drain field was already sized years ago to put the house that we plan on building now to accommodate that size of house. Currently, the trailer that's on the lower side is technically a rental income for my parents. So I'm trying to make it with the 150 feet to keep that still viable for an income for my parents at this point. So that's really all I have for now.
Thank you. Any questions?
May I?
Yes.
Sir, could you explain, and I'm sorry if you've done this, but could you reiterate why it is, or what your practical difficulty would be if the lot you wish to create on the bottom of that screen were 200 feet wide?
Sure. So if you can flip to my drawing. So the 150 feet, if you were to move that to 200 feet, that where you see existing drain field that's dashed in a black rectangle line, that is to scale. So to move that to a 200 foot, well, then you wouldn't be able to have a setback of the 25 feet. It totally clips the corner of that drain field. So with 150 feet, you can see the two green lines beside it. That represents the 25-foot setback, gives me room for the drain field without interfering with the setbacks or anything else. Now, technically, if you're saying, oh, well, you could go 175, that would put me to the bottom right green line. But if I'm allowed to go 45 degrees, I'm trying to keep a nice clean line instead of all the zigzag to make it work. But that's the reason for the 150 feet. So it doesn't interfere with setbacks and stuff for the existing drain field that's been there. Does that make sense?
Which home will be demolished?
The one over there that's hatched in red. So occasionally, I've outlined that kind of floods in that area. So what you see hatched in red, once we build the new house, where you can see is proposed in green, that one will be demolished. The one on the left says existing trailer and above with the 1.35 acres, that will remain.
The existing septic tank is, it's existing there now, right? The one.
It is, and it's technically on the 571 Pear Tree Lane property, not on the 579 where it should be. So when the original property line was done, which you can kind of see in the magenta where it says existing property line, that's the existing property line. So the existing drain is actually on the 571 property. And again, I don't know how long ago that was, but I don't know how that was approved to begin with.
Mr. Jenkins, can you hear this testimony?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks. Any other questions? I just had one comment. I think it could probably shift over a little bit. I don't think you're going to get the whole 200 feet. Because staff, correct me wrong, I think the septic can go within that setback, correct? 25-foot setback.
Correct, Mr. Cusick. We do not have a setback for septics. I don't know that DNREC does either, but that is not a county requirement. The structural setback is 25 feet, and that would apply to structures such as that house.
Thank you.
So if we went to 175 feet, could I make, instead of going straight back, could I go at 45 degrees until I hit the property line? So technically it would be 175, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So it's 175 front and then keep 160 in the back.
Pretty much the same way. So where the 150 line is, if I go over 25 feet and then go up 25 feet, just make a diagonal line there.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, it's definitely.
doesn't look right. It's not functional, but
I would make.
hopefully you guys can just do the 150 feet. I mean, I know.
Yeah,
I'm
I agree.
preaching.
It's
It's just
something to discuss.
Lot lines and
So if I may, there is one code requirement. At the front setback, which I believe is 40 feet here, you have to meet the lot width requirement. In other words, if there's a 40-foot front setback here, 40 feet back, you still have to have the 200 feet. Then you can start tapering it. So that's something to keep in mind as well when granting the variance.
Okay, thank you.
So if a variance was granted at whatever the width specified in the variance, then it would be incumbent upon the applicant to come forward with a survey delineating a line that meets that requirement that you just mentioned, Mr. Blair. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would have to be demonstrated. Yeah, it meets the lot width at the front setback.
That's a survey is required.
To validate that, yes, Mr.
Right,
Townsend.
okay.
yeah, that was my next option. As soon as I get whatever approval or can do, that's the next step is getting a survey. I just don't want to have a survey and be turned down and done paid them.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelbaugh.
All right. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Is there anyone else in the room who would like to testify in favor of this application? Is there anyone online listening in who would like to testify in favor? No, Mark. Is there anyone in the room who would like to testify in opposition to this application? Opposition? Anyone? Anyone on the phone? Mark, that. Okay, since there's no more testimony in favor or in opposition, the application 822-12, the public hearing is now closed.
Next, we have application A-22-13 for Dover Land Holdings. Is there someone present for this application? Thank you. So if you just want to remain seated while we go over everything. Okay. So the owner of the property is Dover Land Holdings LLC. The present zoning district is BG General Business. The proposed variances are from the maximum building height of 35 feet and the 75-foot front setback from a major roadway to construct a self-storage facility. The present use is vacant and proposed as commercial. It's in Levy Court District 5th for Mr. Sweeney. It's located on the corner of Bay Road and East Lebanon Road, south of Dover. Here you will see that they're asking for the variance from the maximum building height of 35 feet to construct a building 50 feet in height, and the 75-foot front setback from a major roadway to construct a self-storage facility within 35 feet front setback. Here you will see looking down the highway, the other direction. This is towards Route 1, and again towards Route 1. The aerial, Any farther above? Ma'am, if you would like to come down and state your name and address for the record and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Good evening. My name's Tammy Munez. Address is 3766 Rumsey Drive, Trapp, Maryland.
And may I ask you to repeat your last name again, please?
Munez.
Munez.
Yes.
Okay. So, Ms. Munez, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So first, I'd like to say that we've reached, so the FAA has approved the building height for up to 50 feet. We have wrote a letter to the Air Force Base, and we did not receive any negative feedback from them. So I know that there was a recommendation to deny. And then, so we have there's like structures are wrong. If you look, there's structures, and none of those that we have seen have that 75-foot setback off of those properties. Sorry. Get my notebook here. So we can make some adjustments, we could, but the necessary hardship, the property is undesirable at this size. I actually have here, I believe you had it also pulled up on the screen. So the property is actually only it's 7.1 acres, but only 2 acres of that would be buildable with those setbacks. So it makes this property undesirable, and we wouldn't be able to close with those owners.
Have you guys purchased the property yet?
No, we have not. That's all I have right now.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, this is Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Speak up a little bit, please.
Yes, this is Jenkins. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question for the applicant. What is the reason for the 50-foot building height, and why does the building need to be that close to the major highway?
Well, the reason for the height would be so that we don't cover so much of that land. So we would save some of the land by going up.
So it's not like the 50-foot height is necessary in order to perform the business or the functionality of the service?
We could make some adjustments. We could, as far as the height, but the setbacks would make it tough to make that property work for us.
Okay, I think I had a second question in terms of why is it necessary that it needs to be 35 feet versus 75 feet from the property line or major highway?
Well, again, we would only be able to actually build on two acres of that land. So we would need those setbacks in order to put our building the way that we'd like to put it.
Do you know what the difference in acreage is when you get that 35-foot setback?
It would bring us to, I can show you right here. And I think you had it pulled up on the screen before. It shows what the buildable area would be, opposed to having the 7.1 acres.
Mr. Jenkins, we currently have pulled up Exhibit B.
Do we have any distances from Route 1 at all? So I'm sure there's some setbacks that occur on that side until we start getting into the driving lanes. I'm not sure if we have that distance at all.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm following.
So on the Route 1 side, just wondering what the setback is from that property line to the driving lanes.
Let me do a quick measurement.
I know that whole area is pretty heavily vegetated as a barrier.
So it's approximately 76 feet from the edge of the road to their property line. Maybe about 56 feet.
Any other questions? Did you have any boards to share with us?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Those boards, did you have to share anything with those?
I noticed you have the same
got
thing.
you.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Please state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Phil McGinnis, 555 East Lockerman Street in Dover.
Mr. McGinnis, do you solemnly swear the testimony given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. Certainly, I'm in favor of this application. You can see up on the screen the configuration with the triangular shape creates a limited building window. Obviously, you're wider at the bottom and you've got nothing as you get to the top. So there's a 75-foot setback being held on the Bay Road side in a district where no other buildings have a 75-foot setback. They're all closer to the highway because most of those buildings were there before the zoning district changed to create the 75 feet. So you can, if you want to maintain 75 feet off of Route 1, you can shift everything to the east and allow the setback, the 35 feet setback off of Bay Road, which is probably more in conformance with the other setbacks in the area. I think the 35-foot setback makes more sense because there's denial of access to Route 1. Route 1's an elevated road. I think your distance from the drive lane is the shoulder and not the actual driving lane. And I might be wrong, but I think there's a guardrail up there too, if memory serves me. But either way, I'm sorry, say again?
Yeah, there is about halfway along the property. There's a guardrail.
Right. So you don't have cars coming and going off of that direction of the property anyway. You sort of have an enclave here. You're surrounded by Bay Road, 113. You're surrounded by Route 1, Route 10. These are all major roadways. And so, that's why you're creating this limited building window. So, and to the extent of the 50-foot request, as Tammy said, without the setbacks off the roadway, then you pinch the area so much you got to go up to build anything. So this is BG zoning, remember, so this is highway commercial. The density of uses that comply with that zoning is pretty broad. Apartments, retail, offices, a lot of high density, high traffic uses. The proposed use here is storage. And so you reduce the amount of vehicular traffic coming and going at all hours of the day than you do from alternative uses. So to the extent that you can grant this variance, then you're creating, and you're at the end of the line anyway. There's no residential use, so you're not impacting any residential users. So this variance application makes perfect sense, and it does conform to all 4 rules that we talked about, because without the variances, then you're just reducing the buildable window no matter what alternative you choose for the development of the property. And you are between runways, as Tammy said, if she talked to the Air Force Base, you're in an AQ's area. So you have noise attenuation, you got building material restrictions and things. So again, the storage use makes perfect use, because now you're not noise issues and airbase issues with, public gathering types of uses. And I did say no neighbors are affected, did I not? And so those are I think the relevant points, and I'll be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions?
Could you speak on why 50 foot is needed? Like, what's the reason why 50 feet versus 45? Or
I can't answer that because I'm not actually the applicant. And Tammy said she might be able to adjust the height to get the area variance. But I suspect that, like a lot of companies, this is a U-Haul, I think, company, and they have signature buildings like a McDonald's or a Burger King or something like that. So they're all the companies now that are building certain types of buildings for construction cost containment and things like that are just trying to be consistent with other buildings they build across the country. So I mean, this project is not Dover, Delaware centric. It is a project that's being built all across the country.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Do you feel a 50 foot building in this area is fits out of character?
No, I don't. I served on the Board of Adjustment 20 or 24 years ago. I know it was a long time ago. And on Route 10 further west, there were 2 variances granted. And I think your staff report shows other variances that were granted in this area. So this isn't out of character with other variances that have been approved. But when I was on the board, we approved a variance for a church pretty much at the corner of Route 10 and State Street. That was, I don't know, the roof was 50 feet, and then there was another 20 or 25 feet of steeple. And then just on the other side of Old Mill Road was another church that got a height variance approved as well for the cathedral ceiling or something, I guess. So, no, this is in perfect conformance with other actions that have been taken by this board over time.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes. This is Jenkins. Mr. McGinnis, in respect to the comment you made about a variance previously, Route 10 West, you were alluding to a church. Would that be Calvary Assembly?
I should know that because I drive by it a couple times a week. I think so. It's next to Torbert Funeral Chapel. Is that Calvary?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on the diagrams. The dotted lines on the interior are the setbacks that would be required if we followed code. The exterior line are those that the applicant is requesting, correct?
Yeah, there's just one exterior line, and that's on the Route 1 side.
But doesn't the property on the western side of that lot also, are you not also asking for a setback there as well? Would that not, under the code, have to be 75 feet off of the, well, that's the east.
Yes, that's
the west.
They are going 75 feet. They're only asking
You're,
for.
you're going to go 70, your setback on the rear of the property to the west of Route, oh, excuse me, I'm looking at this thing backwards. State Route 1. Oh, I see.
State Route 1 is the variant side,
Right.
and that's the least impactful.
So
because
you will
there's
have
no
but you will have a 75-foot setback on Bay Road. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm looking at this backwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sir, are you in favor of the application?
Yes.
Okay, please state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Certainly. My name is Michael Costello, Costello. My address is 3083 Kitts Hummock Road, Dover.
Mr. Costello, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I absolutely do. My first comment is, I think Mr. McGinnis is a genius. I think everything he said tonight is an absolute spot on. I'm a guy that drives by this piece of property about 10 times a week. And I've always said, why isn't this piece of property, which is an eyesore, why doesn't somebody buy it and do something with it? I think a storage facility with reduced traffic on the road would be ideal for this. So I commend everybody who's doing this. I think it's going to be an asset to our community. Thank you, and that's really all I have.
I have one question. The 50-foot building height, can you speak to that? Do you feel like that is?
Yeah, I think, with construction specifications and requirements, I think it would be hard-pressed to build a 4-story building any less than 50 foot. So you'd probably end up going 3 stories. No, I'm not a structural engineer, but I think that would probably end up cutting down the capacity on the building, which would reduce revenue and things like that. So that's an opinion. That's okay.
Do you think the building at 50 foot would be out of character?
No, not with Route 1 behind it. People are going to drive down, they're going to look to the west. What's going to catch their eye is Route 1 traffic, and this would just be one little box in their view. I don't think so. And if it's a U-Haul building, which I heard someone say, I would suspect that they're aesthetically pleasing, so I don't think it would end up being something trashy.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Pat Goodwin, address 5503 Ridge Road.
Mr. Goodman, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you'd pull that microphone up a little bit.
Yep. Okay. So I just wanted to, I'm with the U-Haul company as well, and I just wanted to, show 2 slides. One, the triangular area that you have on Exhibit B here shows the buildable area with those setbacks. So the 7.1 acres of land is actually reduced down to about 2 acres, which makes it undesirable. So I think the question came up a couple times as to what was left for us to build on. So it's roughly 2 acres of land. Secondly, we do have pretty much, this is our building in Frederick, Maryland. This is our latest building that we're putting up. I didn't have it in a slide, but it came up. Just to give you an idea of how the building would look along Route 1, of course, we would work with the county on how the presence would show. We had to set this building back off of 113 because our business has trucks, customers in the community coming in and out, and they have to be able to shunt on the front lot these vehicles around And if the building were moved forward, it would really pinch that area where the customers would be able to drive their vehicles and our vehicles through the lot. So I just wanted to clarify some of the questions asked earlier. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Jenkins. Mr. Goodman,
Yes.
if I understand you correctly, are you saying that with the setbacks that are imposed, the only buildable land left is 2 acres?
It's 2 acres, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can you just describe the use of that building, of the 50-foot building? Like, what, is it like administration? Is it storage? Is it?
Yeah, there's actually 2 buildings will be on the property. The taller one at 49 feet in the center of the property, which would be a full-scale storage operation, climate-controlled, non-climate. We would have a roughly 3,000 square foot showroom for boxes of moving supplies. And it would be a drive-in load-unload, so customers would be protected in the elements loading and unloading their goods. The other box in the bottom corner is roughly 40 feet in height, so it's 10 feet less, roughly 9. And that would be for a U-box operation, which is very big with the military and local communities, where we do the box containers shipping across country from one location to the next. So the that would be the 2 warehouses, or the 2 large facilities. I'm trying to think anything else that would take place. The warehouse would basically be for storage, and so would the large building. Just 2 different types of storage.
So it's 4 stories of storage spaces?
Say again?
It's 4 stories?
It's the main building in the center would be 4 stories, which would come out to 49 feet. That's the basic draw-up of what we do with our buildings across the country now.
Can we pass around that rendering?
Sure. You want me to come up? And again, this is our building in Frederick, Maryland. But it gives you an idea of what we would look to do. Of course, here it would have to go through all approvals and, design requirements for Dover and for the county. Do you want me to are you? Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, did we get the height of the second building?
Yes, the second building stated that it will be 40 feet in height.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, sorry, if you were to grant a variance, that 40 feet was not presented to us. So that's something that you would need to consider. The max height is 35 feet for principal use in BG. So if it's something that you're considering for a variance, please consider that 40 feet in height.
I think we already submitted that, or am I misunderstanding? When we submitted the building at 49 feet, are you saying the other building would not be covered?
Unless the board grants it in their variance. So if
Okay.
they do decide to approve, I'm just asking that you put that in your motion to approve both buildings.
All buildings are.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Good?
Good, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sir, are you in favor?
Oh, yes, I am. Yes.
Okay,
I'm
just
sorry.
state your name and address for the record and allow our attorney to swear you in.
My name is Frank Moore. I reside at 1730 Love Point Road, Stevensville, Maryland.
Mr. Moore, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do, yes. My brother and I own the property as it exists. We own Dover Land Holdings, and it's under contract with U-Haul, and their purchase is contingent upon the approval of the variances. I think Phil and Tammy did a nice job explaining how this complies with the 4 criteria that Mr. Townsend mentioned. The only thing I would like to add is the hardship issue is that obviously if you take a property that's 7.1 to 7.5 acres and reduce the building square footage down to 2 acres, that in and of itself is quite a hardship. Another thing too, I'd like to make sure that I looked on Google Maps, and there is quite a bit of distance between Route 1 and this property line. So if you look at Google Maps, you'll see that there are 2 lanes going north, but there's actually a third lane that's pretty much, it looks like if you look at, there's a third lane they can add, actually it's there right now, they just don't use it. The white lane, the marking of the lanes has it marked as 2 lanes, but if they wanted a third lane, it's there right now actually, And then if they want to add more lanes, they can add more. So there's really plenty of room between Route 1 and this property for expansion in the future. So because the 4 criteria I believe that were mentioned to you earlier, I think I would appreciate if you could approve this application.
Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one online, no one in the room, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Please come forward one at a time, state your name and address, and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Golden, and I live at 1284 South Bay Road, Dover, Delaware.
Ms. Golden, do you solemnly swear your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. I will. So I have some concerns. I happen to be the neighbor next door, and I have lived there for over 30 years. Route 1 came behind us most recently, and there was a border of trees blocking the sound and the traffic, the noise. They have taken all the trees down, even behind the fence. And if I understand behind the fence, I do believe it might be county. I know that some property owners, myself, we bought past the fence, or to the fence actually. So that is, my property behind my property actually, to the fence. And then there's the Route 1. It is extremely noisy right now. I am concerned on where these buildings are going to set based on my house being next door. I'm concerned about the height. I'm concerned about it all. I can't place it in my head. I would like to see that diagram of what it's going to look like. I don't want to approve anything unless I'm 100% sure of what's going to happen here. I would like to have some kind of a border so that I don't have to listen to that traffic and see it every day. Like I said, all the trees have been cut down. And it's extremely noisy. It's not even beach weather yet. So I don't know what I'm getting next door, actually. Right now I'm not real happy with that. The height of the buildings, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to look down Route 113. I just don't know right now. I'm not real comfortable with this. I'd like to see the building that's going to be there that was passed to you so I can see what what to expect.
Ms. Golden, one thing I would say about that is that the applicant has the right and is encouraged to suggest to the board what the development of a property might look like if their variance is granted. But an approval of a variance does not require the applicant to build exactly what they have presented to us. In fact, if the variance is granted, the property could be sold to someone else, and that person or entity could have an entirely different plan in mind for that property and utilize the variances for a different purpose. So it is useful, and I don't suppose the applicant would object to sharing that picture with Ms. Golden. If you'd like to go take a look at it real quick, I think the applicant will allow you to do that before you finish your testimony. While we're doing that, question for staff. There's reference to some tree removal. That's not prohibited, obviously, right? Can we comment on that?
There was discussion with the property owner and DelDOT. I don't know how that went or what was there, but there was discussion with DelDOT about the tree removal.
But the county does not prohibit the timbering? Mm-hmm.
No.
Well, the county will also require a certain amount of landscaping per the plan as well.
Correct.
And do you know if landscaping requirements between the residential property and his property, is that required?
There would be a requirement between the residential and the commercial.
I think that the loss of trees, I presume, is a loss of the barrier to Route 1 that block noise. Is that the
That is true.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to a buffer between this property and yours. If you'd like to finish your testimony.
Well, my husband is here also. Did you want to say something, or I pretty much covered everything? I talked to the gentleman, I saw the thing. He said he would put trees up on my property line, between my property line and his line.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you heard Jamie.
I'm sorry.
Not sure if you heard Jamie, but it is required for them to landscape buffer between the residential property and the commercial property. So it is a requirement.
So that would be.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Nope. Good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Sir, and you are speaking in opposition of the application? Yes. Okay. Please state your name and address for the record and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Michael Beroya, 1284 Bay Road.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. If you go ahead and you look at the picture that's shown up there in regards to what we were talking about with the trees and stuff, you can see right there where the full tree line goes all the way down Route 1. If you go back to some of the other slides, you can actually see what we were discussing about. See right there where they've cut the trees down. Turn another slide, please. All the trees have been removed from that property. The other gentleman came up here and he stated that no other residents were opposed to it. No one's spoken to us. The one lady who first stated she does not even purchase the property. How did the trees get cut down without being, with no one purchasing the property on that? We're not opposed to a business going in there, but as my wife had stated before, the decibels have significantly increased for traffic on there. And if they're going to build a 50-foot building, those trees weren't 50 foot high. So it obviously would not have been blocked from Route 1, from the visibility of the facility from Route 1. on there. I am glad to hear that they are required to put landscaping on the one side. I'd also like to request maybe a privacy fence, if possible, between the property and stuff. I'm sure they're going to have some kind of fenced in on there. That's our main concern right now, and where we were concerned of how high the building is going to be on there. My wife has seen the proposed drawing and everything of that.
You said that's your main concern. Could you again repeat what your main concern is?
Our main concern right now is the noise and the height of the building and stuff, how it's going to affect the sound barrier and stuff on one.
So the noise you're concerned about is the vehicle traffic?
Not the vehicle traffic on Bay Road. With the vehicle traffic, the sound and everything on Route 1, since they've taken all those trees down and they've opened it all up. I understand they want to open up for visibility, but if you have a 50-foot building, those trees weren't 50 foot high. You could easily see a building from Route 1 going by there. And there's not even an exit for them to get off right there out Route 10 if you're going southbound, or to get off right there, you have to go down to the base, turn around, and come back.
So the issue of the tree removal is difficult because it's not, the applicant is not requesting a variance from a restriction against tree removal. So the tree removal does not bear directly on this application. The trees, unfortunately, from your perspective, are gone. The applicant is seeking relief from zoning requirements that are unrelated to the trees. So,
can there be some form of a sound barrier put up? If the variance is granted, will there be some form of?
There are landscaping requirements for this whole site. They're going to have to plant a ton of trees.
I understand that, and I'm familiar with some businesses and stuff, how they have to plant some of the trees and stuff. But normally, like with landscape requirements and stuff, they all start out as like small trees about as high as your desk right up there. It's not really going to do a whole lot of separation between our property and theirs, nor is it going to do a whole lot of to reduce the decibel level and everything with Route 1.
So the point I was trying to make was if the increased visits to the property that were created by, or that are to be created by the development of the property were producing noise that you were concerned about, then this board might have the authority to impose restrictions. But the noise you're talking about is going to be created by the road, not by visits to this site, right? It's created by Route 1.
Currently, the noise right now is created by Route 1. Mm-hmm. I would, with us being right next door, our property line borders their property line, right on the property line. And we'd also, be concerned with, obviously with the U-Haul, we understand it's going to be a business and it's not going to be open, till like 24 hours a day where people are going to be coming in and out. That does not bother us at all. We would just be more concerned, it's not the variance, we would just be more concerned about if they could, some form of structure, wall, something to reduce on that.
Do you figure the building itself will provide a buffer to the noise?
The building itself will provide a buffer. I'm sure it is going to be a metal structure. We all know a building that size would be a metal structure. On that, I do agree with you on that aspect. It is going to provide some form of a buffer. I mean, it's nice to see business going in there, and hopefully it'll do well.
Good. Any other questions? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Only in opposition, sorry. Okay, seeing no one else that would like to speak in opposition, the public hearing for application A-22-13 is now closed.
Okay, our next application this evening is A22-14. Is there someone here to represent this application? Thank you. We'll call you up in a minute for testimony. This, again, is A22-14. Jill Watson, the owner, is Capiotis LLC. They are seeking two variances. They're seeking a variance from the 25-foot front setback and the 10-foot side setback to construct a house. This property is located on the east side of North Bay Drive, approximately 0.44 miles north of Kitshummock Road, east of Dover. The Levy Court District is the third, and it is zoned AR. So if you take a look at Exhibit B, you can see the kind of proposed structure that's going to be built on this 55-foot wide lot. Some other things to notice is the DNREC building restriction line at the back is 34 feet from the rear property line. And you can see the house with a proposed deck, a covered deck on the side. Adding that 12 to the 33-foot house would require them to have 5-foot setbacks on either side to get it to fit versus the required setback of 10 feet. This is just kind of a rendering to give you some idea what this structure, this house would look like. This is looking, I guess, south on North Bay Drive. And this would be looking north. The lot would be off to the right. This is just to look at the lot. You can see it's not improved at the current time. It is covered with shrubs and trees. Again, another look at the lots. This is an aerial photograph. I don't know if it's in the staff report, but the applicants do own the lot on either side of this. This is the center lot that they have chosen to improve. And this is a higher up aerial photograph. You've seen Kitshummock before, I think, on other applications. This just gives you an idea that in North Bay Drive runs along there, and there are a number of lots along the shore there on the beach, and you can see where this one falls among those. Okay, would you please come up? Yes. Please state your name and address and allow attorney. Thank you, Mr. Capiotis.
Thank you much. Hi there. My name is Steve Capiotis. I live at 275 Vinemont Road, Reinholds, PA.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
That is correct. Yes, I do. All right, and as was stated there.
And you may want to raise that mic.
A little higher, I'm a little taller. Got it, no problem. All right, so essentially we're looking to build a house on North Bay, and you can see that the nature of the zoning is for residential property. As far as the character and uses, there's other homes. Actually, this is a perfect photo. You can kind of see some of the other homes are within that 10-foot. They're very, they're closer to the road. So essentially, I believe I counted 14 properties, or roughly between 40 and 50% of the homes along North Bay are within that 10-foot. They're approximately 10 foot closer to the road, which is what we're looking for the front setback to be. As far as there's other variances that have been approved for similar structures, so we don't believe that that's going to negatively affect that. As far as the uses, we've already discussed that. Affecting neighbor properties, we are owners of the right and the left property of that. And for as far as hardships are concerned, I think it was shown on the other plot there where it showed the actual design of the house there. There's a prohibited, by the there, that one, perfect, thank you. We're showing that a third of the lot is not usable at this time, so that prohibits building, and that would be considered a hardship on as far as trying to place that house on that lot. That's more or less what I have. I believe that.
Thank you. Any questions?
So the hardship or the difficulty you have is exaggerated by the blue line labeled DENREC building restriction line. Is that right? Is that what
is
you're
correct,
referring
sir. Yes.
You said that you own the two lots on either side?
That is correct.
Is there a reason why you couldn't combine one lot?
We had wanted to save the right and the left lot for future building, potentially in the future, for our children per se.
May I ask, how wide is the deck?
The deck, they're showing to be 12 foot wide at present.
So any opportunity to try to get as much space as we possibly can, these setbacks. I mean, can we reduce the deck size? Can we reduce the square footage of the house? Just any possible way we could get it to 8 feet, 7 feet, something.
Yeah, as far as the deck is concerned, honestly, I was looking for the house footprint to stay the same, and I would consider, reducing the deck size, like you had mentioned before, 8 to 10 or somewhere around that. We didn't want to encroach more upon the dunes. We actually are, we really like that environment there. And
yeah, I agree. I think the footprint of the house, there's not much room there you could squeeze, but I think there's opportunity to take out the deck if needed. Any other questions?
Yes, Jenkins. So just following up that line of question about the deck. So is the applicant willing to either eliminate the deck or reduce the deck?
That is correct.
So do you have a hypothetical number in mind?
For the width of the deck, I would say no less than 8 feet. Oh, sorry. Yes, I would say no less than 8 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Nope. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Capiotis. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this application? In favor?
Hi, my name is Jill Watson, and I'm at 144 South Kings Highway, Dover.
Ms. Watson, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So I am in favor for this building for one, for all the reasons that Mr. Capiotis just said. But this building footprint here, if you're on that North Bay Road, and some of the pictures you could tell and some of them you couldn't, but there were more homes that weren't included in some of these pictures that are within that setback that they are asking for. And majority of them are at least more newly constructed homes per se that have those same variances. And there was also a blanket variance granted, I forget how many years ago now, as well. So there's been numerous variances granted right there on, between the North and South Bay Road. Obviously with the DENREC setback, you can't go any further back that way, which you wouldn't want to because you would obstruct the view, and that's the whole purpose of living on the water. They're not going to obstruct any neighboring views by moving it forward, asking for that extra 10 feet. And they own, like they said, the lots on both sides. And I know the question came up, and we had also considered possibly a line, a lot consolidation, but like Mr. Capiota said, possibly the lot to the left and to the right would be for their children, or even at some point, maybe one of those down the future, if they don't build anything on, could also be sold as well. So it was just more ideal to not do the consolidation for those other various reasons. The home itself is also, as you could see, it's a custom home. It's only going to increase the values down there of all of the neighboring properties. So it's not going to hurt values. It's not going to obstruct justice. It's not going to be encroaching, going up too far to a neighbor's property because they own both properties on each side. So there's definitely a lot of positives to this. So that's it.
Thank you. Any questions? Can you go back to the floor plan again, please? Yeah, thank you. Was there any thought about putting the deck on the backside, the rear? I should have asked the previous.
Well, there was, but are you talking about on the DenRec side?
Yes.
Well, because there was, but not wanting to encroach too much and get too much there with the DenRec setback. And then that could possibly be an obstruction, for maybe some of the neighboring properties. They may have had an issue with that. So it was just more of what was going to be the least obstructive. And it was, well, they own both sides of the property, both sides of that particular lot right here. So it was just kind of seemed like the more feasible and less obtrusive way to do it.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions?
So that's a deck with a railing, I presume, right?
Right, correct.
It's not going to be covered. It's not going to be a covered porch.
I don't think. You could, yeah.
I believe it is covered with a roof, Mr. Townsend, as depicted.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it is. Sorry. Yes, it is considered covered there. As far as placing it on the back, that is something that we would consider as well.
So that's it on the right-hand side of the structure?
Yes, sir.
That's the deck?
Yes, that's.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right.
But then, I'm sorry, real quick. Then I think it was if you took that deck and put it on the back facing the water, it
becomes more.
When you're on the inside looking out, it was.
It changes the plan of the house, but at that point, if we can have the front, then we can probably work within that. It essentially, this would be what would be facing the water. They've got it switched on there. Sorry about that. And if you go ahead and put the deck on there in the front, it becomes starts to change the way the house looks. But as far as the side setback versus the front, we would go for obviously we'd want the front setback first and foremost so that we could have the footprint of the house.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sorry.
Any other questions? Nope. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this application? Speak in favor. Thank you. Name and address, please, sir, and let them swear you in.
Richard Rogers, RODGRS, 42 North Bay Drive, Dover, Delaware.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I've lived in Kitts Hammock since 1964, had property there. And just a couple years ago, this commission approved 5 foot, and I opposed it next to my property. Now, my property and that property is less than 9 foot apart because these properties down there was like a big mobile home. Houses were built, and when Mrs. Usman died, they shot lines between the houses to try to get straight lines through. I have less than 5 foot. You approved on the north side on my one property, 5 foot for the neighbor to come towards me. He has 5 foot up to my house and a 5 foot setback. So I'm for this of 5 foot setback. In Kitsamok, there is no actual full-size lot like a new lot would be made. I asked to get it approved.
Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Anyone else here would like to speak in favor of this application? In favor? Okay, anyone online? No, Mark? Okay, thank you. So is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. Please come up, state your name and address, and allow our attorneys to swear you in. Thank you.
My name is Robert Smith, and I live at 686 Main Street in Little Creek.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. This variance is strictly against the safety regulations for what were put into effect by the planning board. They required a 25-foot setback on the front and a 10-foot setback on each of the sides. There was a fire in Little Creek less than 2 or 3 months ago where 2 people died because of fire. That house was 20-foot spaced between it and the next house. The firemen had a tough time stopping the fire from getting into the house. 20-foot setback is not enough to really protect the house from fire. The road going into this property is probably about 15 foot wide. If they have an emergency, the ambulance would go in and would not be even able to turn around. Fire trucks couldn't follow it, and so on. For safety reasons, they should not have less than a 25-foot setback. And that's the thing. You got winds down there that are terrific, and they would spread a fire and create a lot of havoc otherwise. And I feel that by altering these setbacks, however you go about it, I think you're just endangering the next person's property or even their own, because they will not be able to get service vehicles back there to service a problem if there is one. Thank you.
Any questions?
How often would you say the fire department has to go back to Kitsamok?
When is the next fire going to be at your house?
No, I'm saying in your professional opinion, how many times have you gone back there?
Again, what was it?
How often does the fire department have to go back there? Are you guys going back there once a month, once a week, every day?
I have no idea. That would be up to God and the weatherman.
I was saying in your history, how often do you guys go back there?
I'm not an expert on that. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm just saying that if they have to go back there for any reason at all, heart attack or anything else, they can't turn around, they can't get down there. If they have less than a 25-foot setback, they're going to be parked in the road, and you can't get by them in a road. There's only a 15-foot road down there.
Thank you.
So the 25-foot setback is the front setback? Is that what he's referring to?
The front is 25, correct, and each side would be 10. So presumably if the house next door were built, 10 on either side would provide 20. Is there anyone else who would like to give testimony in opposition to this application? Anyone in the room or online? Okay, seeing that there's no more testimony for or against 822-14, the public hearing is now officially closed.
Next, we have application A-22-15 for Mr. Burrows. Thank you. Mr. Townsend, would you like to give your...
Right, so we precede these meetings with a reference to the quick check standards, which are what are applicable to area variances. And as you notice from the reports that staff did on this application, this applicant is not seeking an area variance or relief from an area restriction. Yes? Question?
He is seeking 2 variances. One from the use and one for the area.
I apologize. I'm so focused on the irregularity of this application with respect to the one use variance. So, yes. So the quick check standard, of course, applies to area variance requests. The standard that applies to a use variance, which will be pointed out during the course of this application, is different. It's referenced in your materials as a duty on the part of the applicant to show that the property cannot yield a reasonable return when used for a permitted purpose. Secondly, that the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. Third, that the use authorized will not alter the essential character of the locality. And fourth, and all these standards must be met, in terms of monetary proof, all uses of the land permitted under existing zoning regulations are economically unfeasible. Mere economic hardships such as the owner's inability to use the property more profitably without a variance does not justify a granting of a variance under the unnecessary hardship standard, which is deemed to be a more onerous standard on the applicant than the quick check exceptional practical difficulties test. I don't think this applicant is providing support for his application based on economics. So I don't think we'll allow the applicant to proceed here in a second. But regarding the use variance, he is not contending that his ability to use the property more profitably is enhanced by the granting of the variance. Any questions about that before we start from staff? No? Okay, so Mr. Burrows, if you would introduce yourself, give us your address,
Mr.
and
Townsend,
be sworn.
Can I introduce the application first? Thank you. So we have the applicant and owner is Mr. Dan Burrows. The present zoning district is AR, Agriculture Residential. The proposed variances are the variances from the requirement that an accessory structure be located on the same lot as the principal structure to which they are necessary, and the requirement that an accessory structure not be located in the front yard or front setback unless it is located at least 100 feet from the front property line to construct a shed. The present use is vacant. Proposed use is accessory structure without a dwelling. Levy Court District 3rd for Mr. Angel. It's located on the west side of North Bay Drive, north of Kitsummick Road, east of Dover. Here you will see the proposed plot plan showing that Mr. Burrows is proposing the shed to be within 5 feet of the newly adjusted lot line. Mr. Burrows has presented a minor lot line adjustment with a consolidation that has been approved by staff and is waiting to be recorded. That required a dedication of 15 feet to DelDOT for the right-of-way, so he's asking for 5 feet from that dedication. Here you will see the survey exhibit that was for the variance A9136 that created the lots in Kitsummick. The 3 existing sheds were on this survey, along with a home that was demolished in February of 2002. Here is the lot line adjustment that Mr. Burrows has submitted. Again, this shows the 15 feet dedication for the right-of-way, and the proposed shed location would be staff's recommendation would be 16.3 feet away from that new front property line. It would go in line with the dwelling that's to the north. Here's looking down the road at Kitsummick. This is looking at the property. There are the 3 existing sheds that are on the property. They also have recently been condemned by code enforcement per Mr. Burrows' request. Looking at the sheds. Again, down the road. Aerial. And the farther above. So if you could state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Good evening. My name is Dan Burrows. I live at 104 North Bay Drive, Dover, in Kitsummick.
Mr. Burrows, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay. The lot line adjustment that I've done recently and has been approved by planning and signed off by Jamie is awaiting deeds that my attorney's preparing, and then it'll become official. That lot line adjustment is here in front of you, and I think you may have a copy, and I believe it was one of the exhibits. I don't know if Jamie could put that up, the lot line adjustment. The full lot line adjustment, if you have it. No, okay, that's similar to it. That's an old one. A copy is here, and I can also leave you with a copy this evening. In the lot line, I'm going to move here if I may. I believe you each have in your packet when I submitted Exhibit A. If you take a look at that for me, you'll see Lot 35. I am planning to put the shed toward the rear of that lot. Now, at Kitsummik, we call that the rear. What you would call the front, we call the rear. And that's semantics and words. But when we pull up to our driveways down there on the bay side or the wetland side, we pull in our driveway, all of us keep our cars, our sheds, everything there by the street. You don't put the sheds when we're down there. We don't put them on the other side of the house, which is what you guys would call the rear. That's the beach front. You're now putting the sheds at the beach, and your house is behind it. So what we call the rear, you call the front. What we call the front, you call the rear. It's all semantics, but think about it. When you're at the beach and you have a beach house and the beach is in front of you, you don't put a shed right there. When you pull up to the beach house from the street and you park your car, that's where the sheds are at. And I'm going to show you in a little bit 35 photographs of other sheds of exactly what I'm asking for in the same community. And we have about 50 or 60 houses down there, and about 35 of them have what I'm asking for. Many of them are much closer to the road than what I'm asking for. I would like to correct that 5-foot setback. That's incorrect. I'm actually setting it to about 25 feet. So I gave up 15 feet from the road. I gave it up on the front. I call it the rear of our property. You call it the front. We're going to use the county terms. I'll call that the front. At the street, I gave up 15 feet to DelDOT. After that, I'm supposed to have 25 feet before I build my home, which is coming. A home's coming on that lot. I'm proposing to put this shed at 23 feet. I do want to be a couple of feet forward, whereas the record tonight is showing 5 feet. I'm not asking for 5 feet. I'm asking for like 2 feet, to give up 2 feet. So I'm going to be about 23 feet past the DelDOT line. And that, by the way, is reflected here with this little yellow box. That's the shed. And you could see on lot 35, on your diagram, you could picture coming in off that street, going in 15 feet to that DelDOT line that's shown there, then go 23 more feet. You're just about reaching the buildable footprint that is shown inside that lot. Now, that's the buildable footprint for the house. I'm planning on putting the shed right about there. And 5 feet off the sideline, which meets county code, 5 feet from the side. And I'm almost 25 from the front. I want to go 23. So I'm really not asking much at all. One more point, or several more points I want to make. This existing parcel already has 3 sheds sitting right on it. 3 sheds. I am legally allowed right now, it's in writing from planning, to tear all 3 down, and I got them all condemned at my request. Brian Reed, code enforcement, came down and condemned them, so I can pull a demo and permit and tear them down. After I tear them down, I am currently allowed by the county to rebuild all 3 of them in exactly the same footprint. I'm asking to move them up to near the road, and you're going to see why in a moment. Where they're currently sitting at is inside the wetlands buffer zone. There is a 25-foot buffer zone there, folks. If you look at your lot 35 and you see those 3 sheds, that little dotted line passing right through the sheds is the wetlands buffer zone. It's a 25-foot zone in which we're not allowed to build. In this case, the county's telling me it's where I must build. I got to build inside the wetlands buffer zone. So I'm already allowed to build 3 sheds. That's not a question here tonight. I'm allowed to put 3 sheds on this property, period. The only question tonight is where are we going to put it? Inside the wetlands buffer zone, which is environmentally not good, and I'm a tree hugger. It's also close to where the new house is going to be built, and I'm going to look out onto these beautiful wetlands behind me. As I said earlier, when you look out your beach house, you don't want to look out and see your shed and then the beach. You want the shed out front with the vehicles, and that's where I'm trying to put this shed. When I look out the new house at this wetlands that I'm going to build, I want to look out and see the wetlands. You don't want a shed right there, and you sure don't want a shed sitting inside water in wetlands. And I'm going to show you photographs of it soaking wet. I want you to note, it's very important, that line is shown there. That's called the wetlands buffer zone. You cannot build inside of it. That line passes right through my buildable footprint. That buildable footprint is based on the setbacks, 25 feet, 10 feet. And I'm not allowed to use a big portion of that because of the 25 foot for my home. But they're going to make me put the shed in it. It's crazy. I want to tear down 3 sheds and build just 1 in place of it. The existing sheds are 680 square feet. I'm trying to build 384 square feet. I'm trying to duplicate the 1 largest shed that's here, which I already have permission to build. It's just a question of where. Am I going to build it in the water and in the wetlands and look at it when my new house goes up? Or are we going to put it up near the street on almost 25 foot back, which is code? I want to go 23 feet back, not 5 feet. I want to correct the records on that. And I will be 5 feet over from the sideline like code requires. The new house I'm going to be building, and I have the drawings and all here from the architect. The new house is going to start 120 feet back. That more than exceeds the 100-foot setback that's mentioned earlier.
So, Mr. Burrows, you have exceeded your time, and I think the board is going to grant you some more time, but you're going to need to wind up your application.
Well, I think I'm hitting some pretty important points. This is an important matter to me. The new house is going to sit 120 feet back, and the code says you can put your sheds in the area I want them if your house is 100 feet back. I'm exceeding that. I'm nearly at the front setback at 25 feet. I am at the side setback. I gave up 15 feet to Del Dot. The lot previously did not have that 15 feet surrendered to Del Dot. I had to give it up as part of the lot line adjustment. I also want you to notice on Exhibit B, where the 3 sheds are, there's a property line passing right through them. That dark black dotted line, that is part of Lot 36, if you see it out on Kitsummick Road. I did a lot line adjustment just recently, and I took my 3 lots on Kitsummick Road, which is 36, 37, and 40, and I turned those 3 lots into 2. I gave up space. I took 3 lots and turned them into 2 so that those 2 lots wouldn't be so tiny and so non-conforming. They're now bigger, and that's good for us at Kitsummick. It also made the back of Lot 35 much deeper because that dotted line is now removed, and 35 goes all the way back. It goes past the wetlands buffer line, past the wetlands delineation line, and all the way another 25 feet into the wetlands. I actually made Lot 35 much bigger. I'm trying not to build in the wetlands. I can build this shed. Tonight, the only question between us is, am I going to build up where it's dry, or am I building in the back where it's soaking wet, and I can show you those photos? Am I going to build where everybody else in the neighborhood has? I have 35 photos here. I don't think I have any photos, not a one, of a shed in the opposite direction down there. Now, Kitsummick is an unusual community. All the lots are very small. They're all non-conforming because it was a mobile home park at one time, and then it got split up into little tiny lots. If I may very quickly, I know Mr. Townsend's watching my time. I would like to pass out these photos of these sheds 3, 4, 5 days after it rains. You can see the condition of things. If I may pass these out. Maybe you can pass them down the line. May I do that? Okay. These are the sheds that are currently there. You'll see the puddles. These are the sheds that are currently here, and you will see the puddles all around them. And I'm allowed to rebuild there right now. I don't want to. I want to build out by the street like everybody else in the whole neighborhood has, and I'm going to show you those pictures in a moment. And I don't want to build near the wetlands. I'm a tree hugger, and I really want to be out where things are dry. When it does flood down there, the road, out by the road, is the highest point and the driest point. When it floods, the back where these sheds are, the first thing that fills up. And I'm going to quickly just pass these down the line. These is 35 sheds, some on lots by themselves, some with houses. There's one here you approved in 2018. They were my neighbor. And it sits about 10, 15 feet from the front of the road. There are several sheds right here. You'll see them. The front of the shed and the ramp that comes out literally meets the road. There's 35 sheds here that match what I'm trying, actually are worse than what I'm asking for. My request is practically completely in code. The house will be 100 feet back, 120, 5 feet from the sideline, 23 feet from the front. I have existing sheds, 3 of them. I just want to do one shed in a dry area and stay away from the wetlands buffer zone.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Burrows, you're requesting a variance from the requirement that an accessory structure be located on the same lot with the principal structure to which they are necessary, and the requirement that an accessory structure not be located in the front yard or front setback unless it is located at least 100 feet from the front property line. To construct a shed on a property without a principal structure, and for the proposed shed to be within 5 foot of the front property line. Staff recommends denial. I'm just reading this. Staff recommends denial of the request from the requirement that an accessory structure be located on the same lot with a principal structure to which they are necessary. So there's no home on this property currently?
There's currently no home. There's one coming, but the 3 sheds are very dangerous. I have been injured going in them. I went right through the floor. They're all rotted. I bought them 2 years ago, all that land around there. I bought it 2 years ago.
But you've had that condemned, and that's going to be removed from the property, or you're going to remove it yourself?
Yes, it was condemned 2 or 3 days ago. I applied for a permit a day or two ago to tear them down. I have 12 months to tear them down, 12 months, and I'm going to build a brand new one. It's just a matter of right there or up the front. The fact there's not a principal residence there has nothing to do with it, really. There's already 3 sheds on this property with no principal residence, and in these photos I just gave you, there are multiple sheds down there on properties with no principal residence or any residence on them. Multiple photos there.
Is that an accurate statement, Jamie?
And I'm not 5 feet back, I'm 23 feet back.
There have not been any variances approved for a shed or accessory structure to be placed on a lot without a principal structure.
So that the sheds that may appear in that community are there without the necessary variance for them to be there, and without a principal structure being on the property. Is that accurate?
I would say that's incorrect, and I can prove it. There are several sheds that the community association itself owns that are part of our pump house system, 3 of them. Some of them are 2-3 feet off the front road frontage and on real tiny lots and no house there.
So
3 of them.
There very well may have been situations like this. So you will see this large shed on the property here going with lot 36. This was approved with a variance in 91 when they created the individual lots. So this would have been legal non-conforming when the board granted the variances to create the lots. there was, for example, this situation where there was a shed on a property with no home. The board, when they granted the variance to create the lots, granted approval for this shed to be on a lot with no principal structure. That was back in 91. So it is very possible that there was other sheds that were granted on lots with no principal structures back then when they created the lots. But since then, there have not been any variances granted for an accessory structure to be on a lot without a principal structure.
So if this variance were granted, we'd be making an exception to that has not been previously made. Is that accurate?
Correct.
I would like to comment.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So why don't you just, regardless of where the shed ultimately is placed, why don't you just wait till you build your new home and then come back and ask the Board of Adjustments to put your shed where you'd like to put it?
I have been trying to get builders for quite some time. It has been very difficult to get somebody to even return your call and the cost of goods and so on. Thankfully, I now have 2 of them in the past week that have returned my calls, and I have meetings with them. I have architectural plans right here. I have building plans right here by a professional company that's going to build this shed. It's actually be more of they describe it as a pole barn because it's the type of structure it'll be. It won't be your traditional framing. It's done with poles like a pole barn. I have tools and materials and things in there right now. And every time I go in to get them, it is dangerous. It was condemned for a reason. It's in bad shape. My legs have gone through the floors. They're rotted. You can see the water all around it. I understand your apprehension, folks. I really do. But the fact of the matter is, I have legal right now to build 3 sheds on that property if the variance is not approved. I'm trying to build 1, half the square footage, in the same place everybody else in the neighborhood builds, and in a very dry area as opposed to the soaking wet area, and also in an area that is outside the wetlands buffer zone. That is a zone we don't usually let people build in.
My question isn't about where you're going to site it. My question is, why should you be granted a variance before the home was built? And I understand what you said. There's difficulties getting...
They are currently condemned. It's not
fine.
safe.
No, that's not my question. My question is, why now? Why not build? Do you live in that community, by the way?
I do.
Okay. So you do have other places that you could store tools and whatnot?
No, I do not. My other home does not have room for a shed. It is it's 104 North Bay. It's the tiniest lot in the whole community. Okay, I don't have it.
But you're talking about tools.
Now, I'm talking a John Deere tractor that I have, and I would like to it's a $20,000 tractor. It's sitting at this very parcel that we're discussing, and I want to get it in there. I have this is a lot of land I own. This is a lot right here. I cut it all with a John Deere mower that was $4,000 or $5,000. I have power saws, power tables. I got a lot of equipment. I'm a small contractor. I'm asking for 1 building to put my stuff in. The house is coming. If I don't get this, I'm going to go ahead and build inside the wetlands. I don't know why we would not want to. Hey, look, the guy gave up. I gave up a lot. I gave up a parcel, and did a lot line delineation to make lot 35 bigger. I gave up lot 37. If you see it there, I paid a wetland scientist to come out and get the wetlands buffer line tested and moved. I successfully moved that line back 5 feet. DENREC had done a flyover. My scientist came out, and I paid him good money, and he did scientific tests and proved it, and we moved the line back. I paid the surveyor $2,800 to do this lot line delineation. I gave up a lot. I gave up a piece of property, a parcel. I gave DelDOT 15 foot of every one of my parcels when I did this.
Mr. Burrows, you were asked why now? Why not construct the house first? And you've had an opportunity to answer that question.
Yes.
So I think it's time to move on to the next question.
Okay. Anybody questions? I understand your apprehension, but I hope you'll approve it. To me, it's a no-brainer. Do we build it in the water or do we build it up the front? Do I build 1 shed or 3? Do I build it where everybody else is building? There's sheds. I mean, it's throughout the whole community. They're all done this way. The pictures are right there.
Mr. Burrows, as a tree hugger, just using your own
I am proud.
described self, you're trying to say that. Here's what I don't understand. Why would anyone build in a wetland area? You're saying that you will do it unless you're granted this permit. So you'd be violating your own ethics in building there. And you're using that as a wedge issue to try to, you can correct me if I feel I'm wrong here, you're using it as a wedge issue to try to get the Board of Adjustments to grant you a variance to do something which you're not allowed to do under the ordinances of King County.
No, I want you to understand.
You're not doing that? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not.
So you are or are not going to build in the wetland if you're...
I don't want to build in there, and I'm asking you not to, but I desperately need to do something. My sheds are already sitting there. I'm asking you please to let me put it up to the front. There's 3 sheds there. I'm legally allowed to build 3 right now. By the way, one of those 3 is 2 feet away from the property line. If you look, that's a 2-foot setback, and they're going to allow that. I can do that. I can build in the wetlands.
Mr. Burrows, staff has told you, I presume, that you can't do what you propose to do unless you have a principal structure on that property, but you're asking the Board of Adjustments to allow you to do that which you cannot do. And you're saying because you have equipment that you want to store in a building on a lot that you own, that somehow should impact on the decision to grant you the variance. It wasn't this board's decision to tell you what to do or what to buy or where it needed to be stored. In fact, this equipment is associated with your other home as it stands right now. I just don't see why you can't go ahead with your building plans and then subsequently come back to the board and ask that your home be built your storage building be built where it wants.
I do not know how much longer these builders are all going to take to get everything approved, permits and so on, get it built. In the meantime, I have a John Deere tractor sitting outside in bad weather. It was $20,000. I have a John Deere ride mower sitting outside. Then all my other tools, which are inside this shed, literally the roof is leaking on some of this equipment. I got to cover it up at night with plastic. My legs are going through the floor.
All right,
the house is worth
coming. We're going to move on now. I think we're just repeating ourselves now.
Yes.
So.
Well, I'm trying to answer that question.
Yeah, I think
it's a dangerous. They're all condemned. They're dangerous. I want to replace the shed.
Any other questions? Moving forward, good. Thank you, Mr. Burrows.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
Richard Rogers, 42 North Bay Drive, Dover, Delaware.
You affirm that you've been sworn and your testimony will be the truth?
Yes.
You can proceed.
And I'm for him allowing him to have the shed up at the road. My shed is facing the road. And when I sit and drink my coffee, I look out over the bay, and I'm for it.
So, sir, you don't object to the placement of a shed in the location that Mr. Burrows desires? You don't object to that?
I don't object to that. I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
you. Do you have any objection of the shed being on the property without a principal structure?
No, I trust the man he's going to build.
Thank you.
I mean, he has plans there to build and stuff. I believe he's going to build. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Nope. Thank you.
Sir, you're in favor of the application?
Yes.
Okay. Please state your name and address.
Sure. My name is Michael Costello. I live at 3083 Ketz Hummock Road, Dover, Delaware.
Mr. Costello, you were sworn earlier in connection with another public hearing?
Yes.
Right? You may proceed.
Thank you. I live across the street and up a couple of houses from the applicant. And when I look out, I look over onto his property. And the placement of his shed on that lot is the most commonsensical place with respects to where the marsh is on the backside of his property. I have no qualms at all. And I haven't seen the 35 pictures. I went and drove up through Ketz Hummock yesterday and found 7 sheds that were up next to the road, and then the house was off into the rear, if you will. So I don't think this is an unusual request. I do respect the fact that there isn't a structure there. but hopefully we can find some latitude. Thank you. That's all I have.
Good. Any questions? Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application? No one online? No one in the room? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application? No one online, no one in the room. That closes the public hearing for A-22-15.
All right, that ends the public hearing part, and we're going to take a 5-minute break. All right, we'll go get started. Can you please call roll? Make sure everyone's back.
Yes, Ms. Hudson.
Here.
Mr. Jenkins.
Here.
Mr. Nichols.
Here.
And Mr. Kusick.
Here.
Vote shows we still have 4 present, so we still have a quorum.
Thank you. Now for the approval of the business meeting minutes from April 21st, 2022.
Yes, this is Jenkins. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 21st, 2022 Board of Adjustment meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Got a motion to approve it in a second. Call roll, please.
Ms. Hudson.
Sorry.
On a motion to approve the minutes. Yes.
Can we just say all in favor?
You could do that,
Let's
yes.
do that. All in favor to approve the meetings from April 21, please.
Yes.
Say aye.
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 Thank you. Now the notice of decisions, approval of notice of decisions from the April 21st, 2022 meeting.
Yes, this is Jenkins. I'll make a motion to approve the notices of decisions for the April 21st, 2022 meeting, application A22-10 and A22-11.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Got approval and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 That motion approves the approval of the notices of decision. Also, the all in favor of the meeting minutes also approved. And we have an old business.
Yes, so this is for application A-21-06 for Medding. The original variance came through and they were asking for a variance from the front setback of 75 feet to be 50.7, I believe, sorry. Yes. Since then, they went out there and done a survey, made sure that everything was correct. And due to revising that, they noticed that they needed to be 47 feet instead of 50.7. Staff has recommended approval of that. They are also asking for a 1-year extension so that they can do a lot line adjustment to gain some property so that they don't need the the rear setback. So again, staff has recommended approval of both of those. And we have the applicant here tonight if you guys would like to speak to him.
Thank you. Any discussion? Anyone need the applicant to touch base on it? Mr. Nichols, you good? Anyone make a motion of approval or denial?
So how about if we...
Yes, this is Jenkins.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Jenkins.
I didn't know if you were opening the floor for a discussion or were you done?
Yes, we have. Or make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the modification of variance A21-06 based upon the adjustments made by the applicant and the discussion by the staff.
And the approval of the extension as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please call roll.
Yes, Mr. Nichols.
Yeah, in connection with A21-06, I vote to approve staff recommendation, indication that it would create an exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relationship to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements in the property.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Ms. Hudson.
For A-2106, I vote to approve the variance of 47 feet and their 1-year extension based off the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, I vote to approve based on my motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Kusick.
Yes, I vote approve per staff recommendation to approve the modification request and then the 1-year extension.
Thank you. Vote shows 4 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. With 4 yeas, 0 nays, application A21-06 is approved.
Okay. So we're finished with old business. Now we're going to move through the applications that were heard tonight, and I see Mr. Kelball is still here, so we'll start with A22-12. Again, this was the reduction in the 200 feet of road frontage down to 150 feet.
Thank you. Any discussion? Motion?
Yes, Jenkins, I'd like to discuss the fact that I don't see where the 150 would significantly affect the character of that particular area, and the fact that the applicant owns more than one parcel that's over an acre, I believe, in size. I know we also discussed the possibility of, I think he wanted to angle that lot line, and I think we'd have to go at least 40 feet or so before the angle can occur and taper off at the rear.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Jenkins. I think the 150 foot definitely will fit within the character of that area. I don't think it's necessary to make them to stretch that 150. That's my thoughts.
I agree. The neighbor is 105 feet, I believe, so it's in character of the neighboring properties.
I'd like to make a motion.
You're entertaining a motion?
Yes, Mr. Jenkins, if you'd like to make a motion at any time.
I think Ms. Hudson was starting. You can go ahead.
I make a motion to approve A-22-12, the variance from 200 feet down to 150 feet of road frontage. Based off of this restriction doesn't change the character or the use of the lying areas, and it's in. I just mixed this up. Sorry. I'll start over. I approve A-22-12 based off the fact that it's in character of the area. It does not affect neighboring properties, and I believe it is a unique situation.
We got a motion, second, please.
Yeah,
yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Got a motion, a second. Call roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Nichols.
In connection with A-22-12, I vote to grant the variance. I find that it's in nature of the zone where the property lies, and it comports with the character and uses of the immediate vicinity. And I also note that the neighbors they provided written support of the variance, so I approve.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, I vote in support of application A-22-12 based upon the testimony of the applicant, and I just don't think the 150-foot reduction will throw that lot out of character in reference to what's in the area.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Ms. Hudson.
I vote yes per my motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Kusick.
I vote yes to approve application A22-12 for the 150 foot of road frontage. Definitely fits within the character of the area. Per his testimony, there are several other residential houses, lots within that area with less than that road frontage. With the approval letter from the neighbors, also the hardship to be able to build a new home, to take care of his in-laws, and also to keep the existing house for additional income.
Thank you, Mr. Kusick. I just want to clarify with everyone, what is being voted on is exactly what's shown here. We're not talking about angling or anything at this point. It's an exact 150 feet as shown on Exhibit B.
Yes.
Thank you, just for clarification. Thank you. So having voted, we have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. With that, application A22-12 is approved.
Okay, we have application A-22-13, seeking variances from the maximum building height of 35 feet and 75-foot front setback from a major roadway to construct a self-storage facility.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I think this one's unique.
Yes, Jenkins. Yes.
You can go.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, like I was saying, I believe this property is unique. It has acres, but you can only build on 2 acres, so there's a hardship there. I am a little concerned about the building height with the neighbor expressing their concern, but to me, it kind of seems like they were just concerned with the traffic from Route 1, not necessarily the noise of the building itself.
Once I got myself oriented on what was Bay Road and what was Route 1, regardless, the setback requirements are there to protect people that use the roadways. And I know there's guardrails. I understand that. I guess my biggest concern is that people travel on that road at a high rate of speed, and if somebody were to lose control of their vehicle, it could be catastrophic. Now, that being said, we're talking about a storage facility where people are not going to be occupying it that frequently, and maybe that mitigates against the risk of it being closer to a major roadway. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's good points. The safety concern, that's why I sort of asked what the distance from the property line is from the actual travel lanes. I mean, we're good. I think it was close to 60 feet from the property, from state.
I think it was 76 feet, right?
No, it was about 56. I'm sorry.
So we're 60 feet from the travel lanes to the property line, then another, if we grant approval, another 35. So we're good, say 85, 90 feet. And then it was heavily vegetated. So that was a shocker to me to see that. But hopefully they'll plant some back there. And there's going to be landscape requirements, so they're going to have to be put some trees in there.
I'm not against economic development. I want economic development, but again, I just keep looking at staff's recommendation. This has not been purchased yet, the testimony indicated. And staff says failure to remove restriction would not create an unnecessary hardship or an acceptable practical difficulty to the owner. I keep reading what they write because I think it's important we look at it. To the efforts to improve the property, and it says the properties are vacant, it could be designed to meet all the code requirements, therefore any practical difficulty or hardship may be considered self-imposed, which is true. So the new owners, which the storage facility, wants us to try to fit this in there so that it can be developed, but the reality is if it wasn't being developed for the purpose for which the new owners propose, something else could go there. Now, it's been vacant for a long time. I drive down that road too, and no one else seems to want that property. So the fact that somebody wants it, maybe that's a reason in and of itself to grant the variance. it's a hard call for me, but those are my thoughts.
Mr. Jenkins, anything?
Yes, I was certainly impressed with the testimony from Mr. McGinnis, to say the least. Thought he was very factual, very informative, filled in some possible gaps in my mind on some things. Economic development is critical. Every single Sunday I go past that lot at least twice en route to our church, so I see that area all the time. That 4 stories does concern me some, because there really isn't much else in that particular area that has 4 stories. But I mean, I can go with it.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. The building height does concern me as well. I think the setback requirement, I think should be granted, just because I think it makes that lot unbuildable with the 75-foot setbacks on that both sides. But that height does concern me as well. I think it'll be a little out of character, that building height within that area. Any discussion, motion?
Did they not indicate that they could work with the height if it wasn't the 50 foot they're asking for? It could be reduced to a lower height.
They did indicate that, yes.
So maybe it could be modified to some lower level, more than 35 feet, but less than 50. I don't know what that number is.
So do you want to take on the setback variances first?
Yeah, you want to do, that sounds good. Do you hear that, Mr. Jenkins? We're going to do the setback variance. So a motion on that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Steph, how many variances do we need? 2, and we have the 2 are from what restrictions? The
35-foot setback, and then the building height of 35 feet.
But I mean, are there 2 so
No,
there's
just one.
so there's 1 for height and 1 for setbacks.
Yes.
So we're gonna. I think the inclination is to do the setback first. If the setback fails, then there's no point in dealing with the height.
Correct. That's a good point, though. Do we need to state which side the setback is on?
Yeah, I think you should be as descriptive as
Okay.
possible.
I make a motion for A-22-13 to approve a variance of the 75-foot setback on the Route 1 side of the property to 35. I believe that this variance is still in character for the surrounding area. I believe that no one is going to be affected by the buffer from the state road, Route 1, and I believe it does not affect neighboring property seriously.
Thank you. We have a motion. And 1 second.
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. Please call roll.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols.
In connection with A-22-13, I vote to grant the variance with a 75-foot setback from Bay Road and a 35-foot setback from Route 1. I believe that it is the nature of the zone where the property lies, and it comports to the character and uses of the immediate vicinity.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, I vote in support of the 35-foot setback for application A-22-13 on the Route 1 side, based upon the numerous testimonies of the applicants, and the fact that it's in a heavily traveled and commercial type area, I don't think it's going to be out of character as far as the setback.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Ms. Hudson.
I vote yes per my motion.
Thank you, and Mr. Kusick.
I vote yes for application A22-13 to approve the 35-foot setback off of Route 1. I don't think it affects the neighboring community. Also the hardship, the economic hardship to be able to develop on this lot, the unique shape of the lot, to be able to build and compete. That's it. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Kusick. So for 822-13 on the 75-foot setback reduction to 35 feet, we have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. Now for the building height of 35 feet.
So I think we were able to determine that a variance for the blue structure on the left as well as the one on the right are going to be required because they're both proposed to be taller than the 35-foot
correct
height restriction.
So the one to the left, he stated that it will be 40 feet in height.
Mm-hmm.
Then the larger building in the middle will be 49, 50 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion on that one, guys?
My thought is a 40.
So
Go ahead, Ms. Jenkins.
I'm sorry. So are we entertaining the discussion on the height, and are we looking at
Discussion of height or a motion? My initial thought is a 50-foot is too much, but I'd like to try to work with them and give them the 40-foot. That's just my initial thought. Be able to get that front building utilized, and then they'll be able to redesign, rework that middle portion.
Do we know if that type of flexibility is there? I know during the testimony they said they would work with us.
Yes, in the testimony, so they said that the 35-foot setback is what they really needed, and they will adjust it as needed with the building height.
Okay. Oh, well, I would entertain make a motion to approve the building height at 40 feet maximum for application A22-13, just based upon the overall concern about building height being out of scale in reference to what's in the immediate vicinity.
I second.
Thank you. We got a motion and a second for the modified approval of 40-foot building height. Call roll, please.
Mr. Nichols.
In connection with A22 what are we on here? 12? No. 14, thank
13
you.
still.
13. In connection with A-2213, I vote to approve the modified variance, reducing the maximum height on the property to 40 feet. That such a variance would comport with the nature of the zone where the property lies and character and uses of property in the immediate vicinity.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson.
For A-22-13, I vote to approve the variance for the height of 40 foot for the two buildings. I believe the 40-foot stays in character of the area with the airbase being across the street. I believe there's a hotel behind it. So I believe around the 40-foot would stay in character and would not seriously affect the neighboring properties.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, I approve that A22-13 for my motion.
Thank you, and Mr. Kusick.
For application A22-13, I vote for the modified approval of 40 feet for the maximum building height. This allows the applicant to achieve two of his structures to get to the 40-foot height, and also takes concern of the neighboring properties of the building height.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzic. So for application A22-13, for a modified approval to increase the height from 35 feet to 40 feet, we have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. With that, application A22-13 is closed.
Okay, so I guess the A22-14 aren't here, so we'll move to A22-15 as that applicant's still here.
Okay, A22-15. Actually, I have a question, staff. Can you just clarify what we should vote on, like the use variance, what's the other one, and then the Balkan area variance?
Yes.
So we got to vote for both of those?
You can do it separate or together, however you guys choose. So the use variance would be for the accessory building to be on a lot without a principal structure. That would be the use variance. The Balkan area would be the front setback if you permitted the accessory structure to be on a lot without a principal structure.
So if I may, I would suggest voting on them separately because the standards for approval are different for the bulk variance versus the use variance. So when you're justifying your vote, it's important that we refer to the appropriate standards that were identified in the staff report.
Okay, so let's first do the use variance.
So could we just put something on the record? There were a number of references or representations made by the applicant that the applicant is authorized to replace the existing sheds that he's pulled permits to demolish. Could we get staff just to speak to that?
Sure. So the 3 existing sheds that are there, they have been condemned. They are illegal, non-conforming at this time. The property owner would be permitted to rebuild sheds of the same size in the same location as they are now because they have been condemned. He would be permitted to do that within 1 year of the condemnation. So that would give him approval to, again, rebuild same size, same location, the 3 sheds that are existing there now.
But the reason is that they're legal non-conforming, that they existed before the zoning requirement prohibited them to be on a lot without a principal structure. Is that right?
Correct. And there was a home there until February of 2002. That home was then demolished by permit.
And might that kind of circumstance also explain why there are other sheds in the area on lots where there are no principal residences?
Possibly, yes. Mm-hmm.
Possibly.
Thank you. So let's discuss the first one, which is the use variance to allow the accessory structure be located on the same lot with the principal structure to which they are necessary to construct the. Is that right? Yeah, the requirement that such structure be located on the same lot with the principal structure. So he needs a variance from that. Any discussion? Mr. Jenkins, any discussion from you?
No, I'm just looking over the differences in the requirement here for the use variance. I'm just glancing at it.
Yeah, so the first one that we're looking at now is pretty much stating that he can't build a accessory structure on the property without a principal structure. So he wants a variance to be able.
Unless we grant him that use variance.
Yes, he wants a variance to be able to build an accessory structure without a principal structure. But with his comment, with his testimony tonight, he plans on building a house in the near future.
Yes. Yes.
So if we were to approve this based upon a use variance request, and one wanted to cast their vote for that, what is the basis for the use variance request for approval? Because it looks like there aren't any, based upon staff's analysis, but help me there.
So that's the 100-foot setback, correct?
My question relates to putting the shed on the building before the principal structure is occupied, which falls under this use variance request, as I understand it, and then the criteria is outlined here as to what you have to apply in order to grant the use variance. So staff can help me. If you wanted to vote for this, which one of these use variance requests for approval of the variance would one apply?
It could be any of those four. So the criteria for the use variance would be the property cannot yield a reasonable return when used for permitted purpose.
Okay, let's talk about that.
So on that point, the applicant has indicated he intends to improve that lot with a house. He's not indicated that he can't improve that house or that lot with a house because that lot, for some reason, is not an appropriate site for a house. Therefore, he'd like to use it as a site for a shed as opposed to a site for a house. That's not the testimony that's in the record. The testimony in the record is that that lot is an appropriate site for a house, and in fact, he intends to build a house as soon as he can identify a builder to do it.
I want to try to approve this based upon the criteria that we have before us. So help me with it.
Yeah, go for it. Make a motion.
I can't do it. That's my problem.
Start talking.
You want me to stop talking or continue?
Start talking.
Flight of the owner is due to unique circumstances because he's having trouble getting a builder right now due to the inflation of the cost of goods and services. And then you could also
the unique circumstances. He has 3 sheds there now currently that are within the wetlands that he can rebuild right there. And
so that would be the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. That would be a basis for approval if you wanted to approve it. Is that accurate? Staff, tell me yes, no.
Yep.
We're good.
Yeah, and then reason number 3. I mean,
if it's within the character,
put him. Yeah.
It's certainly not going to authorize the essential character of the locality. Okay. Someone care to make a motion?
I'll take a stab at it. I'll make a motion to approve application A22-15 based upon the use variance request, because the use of the unauthorized will not alter the essential character of the locality. Option 2 on number 3. He has the option to put three sheds back within 12 months on this parcel, unless I'm missing something.
No, that seems like right to me. I don't think the owner would do it. It would put a shed in a wetland area, knowing that it would probably damage the shed, but I don't think that's the issue here.
He said if we backed him in a corner, he would.
He did.
Did you make an motion for approval, Mr. Jenkins?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
I did.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Mr. Nichols?
In connection with A-22-15, request for approval of a a use variance, I vote no to do that. Let's see, the authorized use will not alter the essential character of the locality, and the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances.
I'm sorry, Mr. Nichols, so you're voting for?
In the affirmative. I am voting for it, yes.
Thank you for that
Sorry.
clarification. Ms. Hudson?
For A-22-15 for the use variance, I vote to approve. I believe that the fight of the owner due to circumstances of having 3 sheds in a wetlands and the trouble of having contracting a builder due to the current hard times of getting anyone to actually come and work. I believe this is a truly unique situation. He has said forward that he wants to build a house on the property, he's just having trouble locating a builder, and I believe that it will not alter the essential character of the locality.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. Mr. Jenkins?
Yes, I vote to approve A-22-15 based upon my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. And Mr. Kusick?
I vote to approve for application A-22-15, I approve the request from the requirement that an accessory structure be located on the same lot with a principal structure. For the unique circumstances here that he has 3 sheds on the property now that he can rebuild in that same footprint. It's a unique circumstance where he could just be able to build the new shed in a different location that's more suitable for the environment. Also, it fits within doesn't alter the character of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Kusick. So on the use variance portion of A-22-15, we have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. Now for the next discussion, which is...
So on the area variance, if I could help out, question for staff. The applicant indicated that he needed, I think, or he was requesting just 2 feet of relief from the 25-foot setback. Is that accurate?
He is requesting, tonight's statement was that he is requesting 23 feet from the front property line. The principal structure would require a 25-foot front property line setback. The accessory building would need to be at least 100 feet from the front property line or behind the front of the dwelling. So he is requesting the accessory building to be at 23 feet from the front property line. And that is from the new front property line that will be approved with the lot line adjustment.
So does the applicant need a variance from the requirement that the accessory structure be located behind a principal structure?
Or 100 feet?
You don't even have a principal structure to locate it behind.
Right. So he's requesting the accessory structure to be 23 feet from the new front property line.
Front property.
So the applicant spoke to this in terms of this being Kitts Hammock beach community where garages are not located in the rear, or what we would think of as the rear. They're actually located in what we think of as the front. I guess that's
the staff. Yep. And the staff recommendation is to get it past this existing dwelling, to get it out of this line of sight, which his new, with applicant's new proposal, pushes it farther back than that.
Okay.
Anyways.
I mean, this is Jenkins. His request is certainly reasonable, and it won't. I don't see it in any way affecting the nature of the area. That Kitts Hammock area is. There's a composition of that all over, depending on where you look. The composition of what he wants to do is commonplace.
So we would have to put in our motion that we would have to prove it to be less than 100 feet and within the 23, or?
I think I think what staff had suggested was that you just, the motion, if the motion is to approve, the motion would be to locate the shed no nearer to the front yard than 23 feet. Is that right? Or front boundary line?
Yeah, so we want a modified approval of 23 feet. The staff recommended 16.3 per his testimony. He would like 23.
I just ask that whatever the motion is, just take into consideration that he has not recorded the lot line adjustment. So right now, the front property line would be without the 15-foot dedication.
Can we
The
table this?
23 that he is proposing is from the 15-foot dedication line.
Yeah, so instead of 16.3, we're looking at the 31-foot 3 plus what? It's another 6 feet.
Jamie, would you repeat what you were saying earlier, just now? What has he not done?
So the applicant has submitted a lot line adjustment and a lot consolidation. As part of that plan, DelDOT has required that he dedicate 15 feet to the right-of-way. So he will lose 15 feet of his property. He is proposing 23 feet from the new front property line to place the accessory structure. Where the property line exists at this moment, because he has not recorded that plan, the 23 feet from the new line would actually be 38 feet from the existing front property line.
Thank you.
So the motion would need to include the fact that the applicant needs to get the lot line adjustment.
Whatever your motion is, I just ask that you be specific to the current property line.
So if we were to have the 23 feet that the property owner, the applicant is asking for, how far back from the current property line would we have to make?
38.
How many, 38? Thank you. Great.
Okay. I make a motion for A-22-15 for modified approval for the variance to build a shed 38 feet from the existing or current property line of the property. I believe that it's in character of the surrounding area. I believe it will not seriously affect neighboring properties. And the nature of the zone does not change.
Thank you. We got motion. Second, please.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Nichols.
In connection with A-22-15, I vote for the, I guess that's a modified approval of variance. It's nature of the, it is in character of the nature of the zone where the property lies and comports with the other properties in the immediate vicinity.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, I vote in support of application A-22-15, the modified motion, primarily because the nature and the character of the zone where this parcel lies, there's not out of character issue there.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Ms. Hudson.
I vote yes per my motion.
And Mr. Kusick.
For application A-22-15, I vote yes for the modified approval of 38 feet from the current property line. as the shed going at this location definitely fits within the immediate vicinity of the area. No effect to the neighboring properties, as we eliminate any sight lines for the neighbor. It's also there's many sheds within the community that are in the front yard setback. Also, the uniqueness of the property that he's dealing with.
Thank you, Mr. Cusick. So for application A22-15, we have an approval of, or we have a modified approval for a shed to be placed 38 feet from the current property line. We have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. With that, application A22-15 is approved.
And the final application this evening is A22-14, Jill Watson. The owners are Capiotis LLC. Again, there's 2 variances here. There's one for a side setback and one for front setback.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Well, what they identify as a deck with respect to the architectural rendering is far more than a deck. It's an extension of the building. While I don't know if the individual who spoke tonight in opposition to it was an expert, he did speak to the fire hazard. He noted a little creek home where people's lives were lost. It is an narrow road. They could build the home without the deck, at least as it's designed. Staff recommends approval of the request for a reduction of the front setbacks and denial of the request for a reduction of the side setbacks based on the analysis of the 4 criteria, and then they outline what they are. So my thoughts are you go with staff recommendations, now they do own the 2 lots on either side. I understand that, but they don't know what they're going to do with them. And that could impact on the new property owner. They say they're going to save them for, I guess, someone in the family, I understood. But that could be anybody, who knows? But if you can tell me that that's it's wise to go ahead and let them get that close together to what could be another dwelling in the future, sway me.
I see what you're saying. I kind of feel like the side setbacks are maybe just being self-imposed. If he does own the 2 lots, why not? If you want that house, why not just add a couple feet for 1 lot? So I was just kind of.
If he owns both lots, on either side, he could change the lot lines and give him whatever he wants to do. Is that correct, staff? If with owning, I'm sorry.
Yes, he can make a lot.
Change lot lines and do whatever he wanted.
So, these lots are small.
Yeah, I know. I've been there.
If I may, on a lot line adjustment, that wouldn't be permitted because you would make 1 lot less conforming, even though you would make 1 more conforming. So a lot consolidation will be okay, but lot lining adjustment would make 1 worse.
So he would have 1 lot composed of 3 of the currently 3 lots. Is that correct? Okay.
He could collapse any 2 or 2 into 1 or all 3 into 1, but he couldn't make one smaller, make 1 bigger.
Got it. Well, that might present an exceptional practical difficulty, but
I also feel like the applicant is willing to work with us, either reduce deck size, even if we don't grant it, either put it in the back on the bay side. My thought was to reduce the deck to 8 foot, and now give them 7 feet. 7 feet side setback. That was my initial thought, but I understand the safety concern, but every house in that.
Well, you're right.
Is like that, and for the front setback, per the Den Rec building restriction line, if they don't grant that, then it's just that lot becomes unbuildable.
Someone want to make a motion on the approval of the request for the reduction of the front setback?
Yes, please.
Well, I mean, even with that front setback, I mean, Denrex played a major player in it, because you got that rear property line, I think, 34 feet or something there. With Denrex, it's like you give up 34 feet from the rear, I think.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
They call the front, the rear.
Would you repeat what you said? You broke up. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. It's John.
Yes. In regard to A22-14, if you look at Exhibit B, you look at that Denrex building restriction line, it's like you give up 34 feet. Exhibit B, you can look at that.
So, Mr. Jenkins, you're offering that as support for relief from the front yard setback?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We're breaking the two up, right? The front and the side? Is that what you guys wanted to do? Okay. I make a motion to approve A-2214, approve the front setback variance from 25 foot to 15 foot. I believe it's in character of the surrounding areas. I believe there's a unique hardship with the Denrex buffer being up there, and I believe it will not seriously affect neighboring properties.
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Hudson, I just want to clarify, you said 15-foot front setback?
Oh.
My apologies, the 10-foot one.
Yeah. To 10.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. Mr. Jack, did you second that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. Please call roll.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols.
Just make sure we're on the same page. The motion here is to grant the applicant's request. The applicant's request to get 15-foot variance from the 25-foot front setback to 10 feet. I vote yes, I vote for that variance. I find that it's in character of the uses in the immediate vicinity and the nature of the zone where the property lies.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, I vote in support of application A-22-14, based upon the Denrex buffer zone. It plays a big role into what the setback is going to end up.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hudson.
I vote yes per my motion.
And Mr. Kusick.
For application 822-14, I vote yes to approve the 10-foot setback, front setback, as it fits it within the community, the immediate character of the area. Also, the hardship with the Denrex building restriction line makes this lot practically unbuildable.
Thank you, Mr. Kusick. So for application A-22-14 for the front variance, the board has voted 4 yeas to 0 nays to approve the variance to 10 feet from 25 feet.
Thank you. Now for the side setback.
We're probably going to need a modified approval here, right, to address that deck.
Yeah, if that's the route you want to go.
Are we still talking about a variance from
Side setback.
10-foot side setbacks to 5 feet? We're going to give them the 5 feet, but we're going to make that.
I believe it'd probably put us around 7 foot for the
Pardon?
side. I think it'd put us around 7 foot per.
Oh, I see. So it's right. We're not going to give them a 5. We're not going to do. They'll deal with the deck. We'll give them.
Would we have to?
Modify.
I think this is for Fred. Would we have to? Do we say for the 30-foot wide house and the deck, or do we just say this is your 7 foot? Up to you.
Just 7 foot and let them deal with it.
Well, do we need to be concerned about the depth? I mean, do we mean to grant, is the applicant requesting a modified side yard setback that would extend the length of the lot, or just to accommodate a deck that is how deep? A deck or a porch? Do we know that dimension of that? I mean, what does staff want in a case like this? Because staff has to enforce the code.
Staff wants 10 feet.
Right, and that's a good point, Mr. Townsend, I believe, and what the applicant had stated to me was, this variance would specifically accommodate a deck in this case and would not necessarily extend the property line parallel on either side for other improvements.
So I don't think that is a deck. I think if it's covered, it's probably a porch under your code. So I don't think
it is. And initially, the deck setback is 10 feet. But when I spoke to the applicant and they said it was covered, it would have to meet structural setbacks, which on a lot like this, which is non-conforming, less than 100 feet, is 10 feet as well. But we were careful to put the variance request was from the side setback for structure, not deck.
Well, the applicant mentioned that he would be more in favor, if he had to, he would go with a 8-foot wide deck if he had to. So he'd give up 4 feet.
Correct.
I think 7 foot keeps in character of the surrounding areas. They are narrow lots. It's not very roomy, and they're willing to work with the board.
We approved, or one of our hearings, a deck on the property line, if I recall. Well, it wasn't a deck. It was
he's here tonight.
Yes, yours. Thank you. But that was different. That's steps, basically. This is a covered building. I have a little bit more concern about how close we're going to allow that building to be. But again, changed my mind. I want to be accommodating.
I mean, I understand your concerns of them being very close, and I was asking the gentleman before how often there's fires down there, how often they have to get down there, but as you could see before in these photos, they're all close.
Correct.
I think that just goes with the nature of the territory. When you make a decision to build there or buy there, you have to notice that that's an issue. You have to see that.
I agree. They did point out that it used to be a mobile home park, and those are very close together.
Yeah. The whole safety issue is something to ponder.
I just think the applicant's willing to work with us, so whatever we decide, he'll make work.
Yep.
If we say 8 foot, 9 foot, keep it at 10 foot, I think he's going to make it work regardless. So I think just
you want to make an emotion.
Making a motion will be
modified approval.
Awesome.
I'll make a modified approval for A-22-14 for a modified approval to allow a 7-foot side setback. I believe that's in character of the surrounding areas. I believe all of Kittahummock is small. This is no strange thing to that area. I believe it will not seriously affect the neighboring properties. And I believe the lot is quite unique.
Just to clarify, Ms. Hudson, so it will be 7 feet on either side, correct? We're assuming he's going to center this thing? Okay, thank you.
Yes. I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Thank you, and one last time, Mr. Nichols.
Well, so just a question. He's presented us with a plan, but he's not required to build that house. We changed the side yard setbacks from 10 feet to 7 feet, then he can build anything he wants. Doesn't have to have a deck on it, but it could be a house that extends within or up to 7 feet from either side yard. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Nichols.
In connection with A-22-14, request a modified approval for use variance with a 7-foot side setback on either side of the centered building. I vote in affirmative on that. It is the nature of the zone where the property lies and character and uses of properties in the immediate vicinity.
So Mr. Nichols, you mentioned use variance. You meant to say area variance.
Thank you, Fred. Yes, excuse me, area variance.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, I vote in support of application A22-14, the modified motion on the side setback of 7 feet, primarily because it's a reasonable request, and it's also in line with the composition of other parcels in the vicinity.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson.
I vote yes per my motion.
And Mr. Kusick.
I vote yes for the modified approval of 7-foot side setback for application A22-14. Definitely fits within character of the area. The neighboring properties, he owns both sides, so I think that was a deciding factor, allowing the list, and also the uniqueness of the lot, to be able to fit this size house on that lot.
Thank you, Mr. Kusick. So for application A22-14 for the side setback, we have a modified variance of 7 feet on either side. We have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. Application A22-14 is approved. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I make a motion.
I second it, yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Bye.